Hello everybody, I am making this video about why we are in the last days before Jesus comes and that Jesus is indeed coming soon. So it is important to get ready and to give your lives to Jesus and become knowledgeable about all these different things so that when they happen you'll be prepared and ready for it. Why do I believe that we're living in the last days? Well, thank you for asking. I'm getting to that. Well, in Daniel 12 it says, an angel is talking to Daniel, and he says, "But you, Daniel, shut up these words, and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase." Well, why would he say shut up the books and seal it until the time of the end? Well, that wasn't literally like, oh, keep it secret from everybody, but like most people would not understand these prophecies until the time of the end. Because number one, none of the prophecies had happened yet, so it'd be really hard to understand stuff that hasn't happened. And number two, many people weren't so educated about the Bible. Not many people could even read. So, like, if you notice now, we're living in a huge intellectual boom. You can find almost any information on the internet. People are, creating technologies, and we're definitely fulfilling the part where the verse where it says, knowledge shall increase. Also the part where it says, many shall run to and fro the earth. And back in Daniel's time, the only way to get around was by walking, horse, or ship, and that took a long time, to get from one point to the other. And so walking to and fro the earth was probably like a foreign concept to him. But today, you can hop on a plane and end up in China, and in the same day. So, people running to and fro the earth, that wasn't heard of back then. But today, that's definitely a fulfillment of that statement. There are more signs of the end other than that one. In Matthew 24 is probably the most useful, and it's kind of long, so people bear with me. But I feel like it's necessary. So Matthew 24 says, starting in verse 3, I believe, all the way to the end, it says, "As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately and said, 'Tell us,' they said, 'when will all this happen, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?' Jesus answered, 'Watch out that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying, I am God, and will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. This is obvious today.'" Sorry, this is my own commentary. "This is obvious today, recently, are we at war with Korea? Yes or no? I just saw it in the news." Back to the verse. "But see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of more to come. Then you'll be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you'll be hated by all nations because of me. At that time many will turn away from the faith, and will betray each other and hate me. Will betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many people because of the increase of wickedness." Insert. Today is one of the most morally corrupt times ever. Have you seen the crime rates and, all this stuff all over the internet, pornography and clubs and drugs and sex and everything? It's looking more like Babylon and Sodom and Gomorrah than anything else. Back to the verse. "The love of most will grow cold." There's a lot of spiritual apathy in today's world. Jesus isn't even allowed in public schools anymore. Used to be. Back to the verse 13. "But the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, he's talking about the Antichrist beast right now and the power of 666. "Let the reader understand. Then those who are in Judea is symbolic for the true keepers of the Ten Commandments, like the Israelites were at the time, so that's modern-day Christians and people who still cling to God's law. "They will flee to the mountains at this time. Let no one on the housetop go down to take anything out of the house. Let no one go back into the field to retrieve their cloak. How dreadful will it be in those days for pregnant women or nursing mothers. Pray that your flight will not take place in winter or on the Sabbath." Yet again, this is the importance of the Sabbath here. Verse 21. "For then there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again. If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive. But for the sake of the elect, those people who keep God's commandments and law. Those days will be shortened. Basically, God will not allow the persecution to go on unnecessarily. Verse 23, at that time, if anyone says to you, look, here's the Messiah, or there he is, don't believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. The devil will give people power in the last days to do miracles in order to deceive people and draw them away from God. Like, if a person comes up and starts doing miracles, you're going to think, wow, this guy's really godly, and so you'll start believing what he says, thinking it's truth, but then he'll start inserting lies and deceptions to draw you actually further away from God. Anyway. Where am I? Verse 25. See, I have told you ahead of time. If anyone tells you, there he is out in the wilderness, do not go out. Or here he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Basically, every eye will see him. So, if someone says, oh, there he is, that's not him, because God's coming in the sky, and I'm pretty sure that dude that they're saying, oh, look, he's over there, didn't come in the sky. Anyway, verse 28. Wherever there is a carcass, there will be vultures gathering. Basically, Jesus is calling these false prophets carcasses, meaning full of death, and the vultures are those people who listen to him. Listen to them. Verse 29, immediately after the distress of those days, once persecution starts, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. Sorry, I'm just really tired. Verse 30. Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then all the wicked peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man, or Jesus, coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the earth to the other. Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. So they're making an analogy right now. Even so, when you see all these things, you know that the end is near, right at the door. They're saying, the same way that you can tell that a fig tree is about to bear fruit based on what it's doing, these things that they're describing right now are to tell you, look, the end times are coming, so get with it. Verse 34 says, truly I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all of these things have happened. The heavens and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. The day and the hour is unknown. But about that day of the end, or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor Jesus, but only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be with the coming of the Son of Man. From the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, carrying on, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be with the coming of the Son of Man. Basically, he's saying people just lived their lives and just ignored Noah, saying, hey, look, it's coming, it's coming, Noah actually tried to save these people and telling them the flood was coming, but they didn't listen to him. They're just like, you know what, screw you, I'm just going to continue doing my thing. And then the flood came and they're like, oops. So, verse 40 says, 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken, the other left. 2 women will be grinding with a handmill, one will be taken and the other left. Now, I'm going to pause here because this is important to know that these 2 phrases are not in support of the theory of the rapture. This is saying that people will be going about their business and then they will be judged. When God comes, one taken, the other left. Like, one will be taken up to heaven, the other one will stay there on earth. Maybe you use this out of context in support of the rapture, which is not biblical. The Bible clearly in many different places talks about how every eye will see him when he comes. If people are just getting raptured miraculously, invisibly, there's nothing for them to see. There's not any Jesus coming back for them to see. Anyway, verse 42, therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day the Lord your God will come. But understand this, and this is making another analogy, if the owner of a house had known at what time of the night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have let his house be broken into. So you must always be ready, because the Son of Man, or Jesus, will come at an hour when you do not expect him. This is important because many people, they don't want to give their lives to God now. They'll just feel like they just do it later. But, tomorrow is not promised. You could die today in a car accident, or, someone could, kidnap you and kill you, or, even if you're at school, there could be a shooting. Anything could happen. So, you need to take control of your destiny now and not leave it into the last minute, because if you're not prepared, something could happen and then you don't have another chance. Back to verse 45. Making another analogy. Who then is the faithful and wise servant who the master has put in charge of the servants in his household to give them their food at the proper time? It will be good for that servant whose master finds him doing so when he returns. Truly, I tell you, he will put him in charge of all of his possessions. But suppose that servant is wicked and says to himself, "My master is staying away a long time," aka Jesus is in heaven, he's not coming for a long time. And then he begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with drunkards. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he is not aware of. He will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Many people don't think Jesus is coming, so they live their lives how they want to. So that's the end of Matthew 24 about the end times. This is a very helpful chapter, just talking about how we know we're living in the end times and what the signs will be. But there's an even bigger indicator that we are living in the end times, which is in a prophecy found in Daniel chapter 9. So an angel is giving a prophecy to Daniel, and he says in verse 9:24, 70 weeks are determined upon your people and upon your holy city, to finish the transgression, and to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Basically, what's happening here is the angel is telling Daniel that the Jews have 70 weeks left until the coming of the Messiah, which would bring an end to Judaism and bring into Christianity. Basically, it's a warning for them to pay attention and be on the lookout for Jesus coming. But of course, as people do, they don't listen. No one listened to Noah. No one listened, to the prophecy in Daniel about Jesus coming. No one's going to listen now about God coming soon. So this vision was given to Daniel in 457 AD, which was when Artaxerxes made a decree to rebuild the temple. And we know from Bible prophecy that one day is always symbolic of 1 year whenever used in prophecy. So he said that 70 weeks are determined, for their people until the Messiah comes. So, okay, starting in 457 AD, 70 weeks later, the Messiah will come. Well, 70 weeks, 70 weeks, you split it up into days. 70 weeks times 7 days is 490. So we'll have 490 years till the coming of the Messiah. So 457 plus 490, we're getting to that. Did I say 457 AD? I think I meant, I'm sorry, 457 BC, not AD, because Christ hadn't come yet. That wouldn't make sense. I'm sorry. Okay, so Daniel 9:25 says, "Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandments to restore and to build Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince comes shall be 70 weeks. The streets shall be built again and the wall even in troublous times." Anyway, so it's 457 BC. And we know that 490 years later, the Messiah will come. So 483 years pass, and it is now 27 AD. What happens in 27 AD? Well, this is when Jesus first reveals himself as the Son of God, and he was baptized by John the Baptist, and the dove comes down, a light from heaven fell on him. So that was 483 years later, in 27 AD, which up to that point was only 69 weeks, not 70. So you're saying, well, that's off. Well, no. 490, years minus the 483 that already happened, equals 7. So that's 7 more days, which is really 7 more years. The last remaining 7 years was Christ's ministry. So that last week of the 70 weeks was when Jesus was actually doing miracles and healing people. And so in that last week, it's important because Daniel also goes on to explain, in the midst of that last week, he, the Messiah, shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. So we know in the middle of that last week, something happens. So we know that on 27 AD, Jesus was baptized, and half a week later, which would be 3.5 years, Christ was crucified on the cross, 31 AD. And those last 3.5 years was just, when Jesus rose up again and, talking with the disciples and creating, his followers and stuff. So, the reason why it says, in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice to cease is because at this point the Jews were still sacrificing lambs and stuff as atonement for their sins, but Christ came and became the true lamb, which, made it unnecessary for them to sacrifice lambs anymore because Jesus became the true lamb. So, shoot, what did I just click? Just kidding. I just lost my notes. Oh, here they are. So, you might be wondering, okay, what does this have to do with last day events? Well, I am getting there. Let me just scroll down. Okay, so we're going to go back a chapter. We were just in Daniel 9, which was talking about a specific period of time, the 70 weeks from beginning of the vision in 457 BC to, 490 years later, which was 34 AD. So we're going back a chapter where he also gives another prophecy about some days. So it says, Daniel 8:13 says, Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said to him, How long will it take for the vision to be fulfilled? The vision concerning the daily sacrifice, the rebellion that causes desolation, the surrender of the sanctuary, and the trampling underfoot of the Lord's people. He said to me, It will take 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the sanctuary will be reconsecrated or cleansed. So we know 2,300 evenings and mornings, that represents 2,300 days, which also represents 2,300 years. So this vision was also given at the same time as the one about the 70 weeks. I wish I could diagram this for you, but basically the angel gave him 2 visions that both started in the same day. They both started in 457 BC. Then he's like, okay, I'm telling you there's going to be 2,300 years. But the first part of that 2,300 years is the 70 weeks. So that's only part of the whole thing. I was just going a little bit more detail about the coming of the Messiah, the first coming of the Messiah, which was Jesus on the cross. So there's 457 BC. The first 70 weeks happens, which is the first 490 years. Then we're at 34 AD. And then there's still all this other time left till we get to the 2,300 days, the end of the 2,300 years. So, when Daniel got this vision, he was kind of confused. And so Gabriel came back to him and said, Gabriel, I'll make you understand, Daniel, I'll make you understand this vision. So he came near to where he stood, and when he came, Daniel was afraid and fell on his face, but he said to me, Understand, Daniel, that the vision refers to the time of the end. So we know that the 2,300 days refers to the time of the end. Not saying that exactly 2,300 days or years that Jesus would come, because no one knows the time or the hour. The Bible says that no one knows when Jesus will come, not even Jesus. Only God the Father knows. So it started in 457 AD, and then the first 490 years, were to build up to the first coming of the Messiah. Now the remainder between those 490 to the end of the 2,300 is how many? If you do 2,300 minus 490, you get 1810. So a lot of people believed that, at 1810, that would be the end of the world. And specifically, October 22, that would be the end of the world coming up. But, we ended, oh shoot, I didn't explain this part. You're probably like, what are you talking about? We didn't add the remaining 810 from the 490 to the 2,300 to 34 AD. That's where the end of the 490 cut off. So, if you add the 1810 remainder, starting from 34 AD, you get 1844. October 22, 1844 was known as the Great Disappointment, when Jesus was supposed to come, but he didn't, because people thought, oh, well, they counted up, they added up all the years, they understood the prophecies, but they just missed the fact that, you know, that's not saying that Jesus is going to come in that day, but that's the end of prophetic time. You may be asking, what's prophetic time? Prophetic time is just, you know, giving, you know, prophecies and stuff. So after that, there's no more prophecies, because now we're living in the last days. It's kind of like in overtime, like you have a set amount of time to play a game, and then, you know, that's a certain amount of time. Like the same thing as the 2300 days, like the set amount of time. And then after that, it's just overtime, and we don't know when the overtime will be over. So we're living in overtime right now, basically, waiting for the ending to come. Let's see, back to my notes. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say right now to prove that we're living in the last days. I mean, there's more stuff, obviously, but I can just go on and on. But just refer to the Bible. Read Daniel 8, Daniel 9. Read Revelation 13, Revelation 17. You know, it's pretty good stuff. It's pretty easy to understand once you understand what the symbols stand for. You don't even have to guess. The Bible tells you what it stands for by itself. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Bye.